Hi there, brilliant people. So today's question is, how do I connect to my intuition? Well, in order to connect to your intuition, if you're asking that question, you're already in a good place, because if you're asking how you connect to your intuition, you've accepted that you have an intuition. This is great. So the next steps are, of course, to then find what kind of intuition that you have. So the more that you understand the way that your intuition works, the easier it will be to connect to that. So there is a playlist on this channel about all the different sort of intuitive languages. So you might want to have a listen to that, go through those, find what your intuitive language is. But essentially, it's like not only accepting that you have intuition, good place to start, but also accepting that it is a skill. Yeah, of course, like most skills, like whether it's singing or playing tennis or cooking, we can arrive on this planet with a certain degree of aptitude to certain things. But even if we have that kind of raw talent, which is brilliant, of course, if, whatever we have that raw talent in, but we can still develop it further. And this is one of the reasons why we talk about the difference between conscious intuition and unconscious intuition, because here on this channel, we talk a lot about conscious intuition because we are working with it as a skill, because there are ways that you can develop it further. So what you need to do is, I know it's a bit boring, but you need to practice. So there are different ways of practicing. Once you identify what kind of intuition you have, you can also find ways to actually practice. And a lot of that practice is helping you really focus the questions that you want. So focus the answers to the questions that you have for your intuition. Because the thing is, your intuition can connect to so much, because those holographic patterns that underlie your intuition, well, they're holographic. So that it's the similar thing, that it's like, if I ask you to think of a tree, you will think of one tree, probably a tree that you know. Whether it's probably a favorite tree. That's what most people think of. But if I ask you, just to finish that. So if thinking of one tree, that's very specific. So it's a very specific, therefore focused thought. Great. But if I ask you to focus on the concept of tree, that's a bit fuzzier, isn't it? And it's fuzzier because it's much, much bigger. Because of the concept of tree, there's so much in there. It's like all the trees that ever were, or are, or will be, what a tree is biologically, how a tree evolved, what trees mean for our ecology, what it means in current climate change, what that means in poetry and philosophy. All of that and more is in what is in the concept of tree. So the thing is that when you are connecting to your intuition, you're connecting to all of that. So again, might seem like a paradox, but when you're connecting to your intuition, it's often more about learning to be a little bit more discerning or focused about how you're going to connect to it. Like, which parts of all of that do you actually need for the answer that you want your intuition to give you? It's learning to focus that is one of the first steps in really learning to connect more effectively to your intuition. So this is why a lot of people like to use cards, because the cards themselves, whether they're tarot cards or oracle cards or animal cards or truth is even playing cards, but the cards themselves, they kind of break all of the answers that could be. They tend to break them up into kind of discrete packages. Like each card is a different package of all of that information. So that's why pulling a card can help you learn to focus your intuition, because a lot of the time when we do it passively, so initially you might just pull the card and read it, but when you take the next step, you pull a card and you read it and you go, okay, so what is my intuition trying to tell me about this? And then you practice that active listening to see what is coming through. Like, what about that card is really particular for you? So that's one way to do it. Some people use dowsing. There are different ways to actually start to use, to refine that focus, to practice that. Because that is one of the trickiest things when you first start to use your intuition. You're opening yourself up to all of that information, but in order for that information, it's like sort of dumping a whole library of information into your computer. It's great, you've got all that information, but how do you pull out of that the information that you really want? Because when we're looking to connect to our intuition, really that's what we're looking for. We're looking for our intuition to be able to pull out information that's actually helpful for us. And we do that two ways. One is by practicing, like using cards or something like that. There's lots of different ways. Some people use rune stones. Some people get different colored little crystal pebbles and each of the different crystals represent something. It's just a way to get you started by using these things that enable you to go, okay, well, I don't have to read the whole library to get my answer. I just need to look at that book or whatever. So by learning to use that to help yourself focus, but also another way to help your intuition focus is by learning to ask really specific questions. And the best way to do that is to stop and ask yourself, what really do I want here? What is it? What exactly am I trying to achieve? What exactly is it that I want to know? What is my outcome here? Because that will give your intuition a much more specific focus, and that will make it easier for you to connect to your intuition and also to remember that you're brilliant.